So you're smart, you're capable, you're good at your job, but life just feels okay. And yet there's this quiet voice in your head that just won't go away, telling you, is this really it for the next 40 years? And, maybe you're just starting to question life and all the decisions that you've made in the past. Were your choices actually yours? Or did you make them from external influences? And now you're just overthinking all of the what ifs. I know because I lived it. I'm an optometrist and I've spent the last 10 years in a career that I chose for stability and not for passion. And about 3 years ago, I began diving deeper into mindset work and started getting actual clarity on what I wanted in my life. With zero business knowledge, I started learning and building my own online business while still working in my 9-to-5 job. So in this video, I want to share the 5 biggest lessons I've learned so far and the ones that I wish someone had told me on day 1, so you can move faster than I did. So the first lesson took me embarrassingly long to actually feel, not just know, that no one is coming to hand you your exit. No one's going to tell you what to do. And I'm probably still going through this right now. There's no boss who'll suddenly say, you deserve more freedom, go and create something more out of your life. There's no perfect email or moment arriving in your inbox that'll tell you exactly what you need to do to achieve your goals. So, you are the architect, the director, the star of this film called Your Life. Don't be the guy on the side waiting for someone to tell them what to do. You create, you manifest what you want. Remember that you are the world and the world is you. This idea runs through almost every wisdom tradition and religion. It may be worded and said slightly differently, but the core idea is exactly that. So here's how this showed up for me. On paper, I was empowered. I was a qualified professional. I had a good income. I was capable. What I didn't actually realize was underneath, I had a hidden paradigm, an invisible belief system running the show. And mine said something like, I'll keep working hard, I'll keep being good, I'll keep pleasing everyone around me, and someday the right opportunity, the right thing will just happen to me. It will just find me. So, like I said before, I chose my career for stability and approval, not because it was my dream. And subconsciously for years, I waited and waited for the right time, for some permission, for some sort of kind of validation, for someone to tell me that it was okay, that I didn't quite enjoy what I was doing, and it's okay to want more. Consciously, I'd never have admitted that to myself until very recently. So the you 1.0 is the version of you today running on old scripts. And here's the thing about paradigms. You can't outwork one that you can't actually see. The moment everything shifted for me was the moment that I stopped waiting and I started making the decision myself. So this is your reminder. And it's not an area of your life to outsource to someone else. Not to your employer, not to your parents to decide, not to someday, and not to anyone. You have to take that action yourself. You get to rewrite the script at any time that you choose. From what you feel internally, you can literally create the external reality that you dream of. You've watched it in so many videos, you've seen it in people around you. So why can't you do exactly the same? So if you're feeling stuck and you're just not quite sure if the path that you're on is the one that you truly want, I have a small private community for women built exactly for this, where we first spend time figuring all of this out, diving deep into mindset and personal development first before we start building anything. So if you're interested, click the link in the description below. So lesson 2 is you are your biggest investment. Not your job title, not your savings, you. Every skill you learn, every belief you upgrade, it all compounds. And unlike anything else, nobody can take that from you. I've seen this directly in my own journey. So when I started, I didn't begin with a logo or a launch. I invested in learning in my own mind first. I rented a small office space just to give this work like a real home. So when I come here, I have to just focus and prove to myself my commitment to me. And since I started taking these small actions, putting myself first, investing in me, looking back 3 years, I can literally barely recognize the girl I was compared to who I have become now. And I'm definitely not where I want to be yet, but I'm no longer the girl I was. And the part that nobody tells you is that you can't just out strategize an employee mindset. So you can have the perfect business plan, but if your identity is still an employee who needs permission, who needs validation from someone else, your boss or whatever, you'll always find ways to sabotage that. And your business will never outgrow your self-image, and your results will always catch up to your identity. So you need to work on you first before building anything. And you might think, well, I don't have time to do all this mindset, personal development work. Why do I need to think and figure out who I am? I already know who I am. But, sometimes that's true. But quite often it's a mask for, I don't think I'm worth it. Spending time on me, figuring out me. This work is not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable. And that's why the majority of people don't want to do it. They keep putting it off and just putting it to one side because it's hard work at the end of the day, figuring out who you are, what your purpose is, what you actually want in this life. So just try and reframe it instead of jumping straight into I can't, or it just feels too uncomfortable. So firstly, I'd ask, is this genuinely what I want? If your answer is no, easy, move on, no guilt. And if it's a yes, the question then becomes, how do I make this happen? And what do I need to do? That one shift opens doors that I can't keeps locked. And lesson 3 is my favorite. A different life is one brave decision away. So you may not have come from a family of business owners or entrepreneurs, and maybe nobody around you has ever done anything like this or done anything different in life other than follow the traditional path. And that was me too. But you can still be the one who breaks that pattern. So, I grew up seeing people in my life always struggle with businesses. So in my head, I subconsciously had associated entrepreneurship and businesses with failure. And in my culture, there's a real pressure about being seen to try something different. Or, maybe that's just in my head, but that's how I feel anyway. So, if you attempt to do something different and it doesn't work, you just feel everyone looking at you and everyone knows. So when I started building my business and started doing something different, I just kept it to myself. I kept it private. I didn't tell my family. I built quietly because the fear of being watched while still kind of failing and not getting to where I wanted to be felt actually heavier than doing the actual work itself. So sometimes it's okay to just keep yourself and what you're doing private. But here's what I've learned. The beliefs that you've inherited. Stay in the safe 9 to 5. Don't draw any attention to you. A good degree that will give you a good job is the goal. They're not your fault. You didn't choose what you were born into, but it's on you to change it. This is important because, you can love your family, but you can still reject the script that they handed to you. Loving them doesn't mean living and becoming their beliefs. Their fears don't have to become your ceiling. You can write your own story. And you definitely don't have to live someone else's. And a lot of us are stuck in this mindset. I'm not special. I'm not braver than you. I just made one decision. And then I kept making it. Quietly, day after day. From the day that I realized that something had to change in my life. And that's what brave actually is. Just taking the small action that will eventually move you to where you want to be. And lesson 4, you can't build freedom on a mind that's wired for safety. Being just busy isn't the same thing as building. Your brain's job is to keep you safe, So when you start doing something that's a little bit different, a little bit unfamiliar, maybe posting online when you've never posted before, or making an offer or telling someone what you do, it doesn't feel exciting straight away. It actually probably feels more dangerous and you probably feel scared. And your mind will protect you in the sneakiest way possible by just keeping you busy. And what I mean by that is, watching just one more tutorial, tweaking that website or landing page just one more time. Let me change that color. Or, just researching. Let me just spend another day learning and researching, planning, just a little bit more. And, it feels like progress because it feels like you're looking at a screen and you're doing something. But in reality, it's just motion and it's not movement. I've had months like this, showing up every day, doing lots of stuff, being, productively procrastinating essentially, but making zero progress because everything that I was doing was just safe and nothing I was doing was visible. I wasn't actually taking the action that I needed to take. This is actually forced action versus inspired action. Action that actually moves you towards the life that you've chosen, even when it's uncomfortable. That's inspired action. And the fix isn't like hustling more. It isn't learning more. It isn't, buying more courses. It's a pattern interrupt. So notice it next time. Ask, with whatever task that you're doing, would this scare the you 1.0 even a little with what you're about to do? If the answer's no, then you're probably just hiding and you're not building. You're scared to take that action. So just shrink it. Take one small visible action instead. And that can actually beat 5 hours of incredibly busy work. And another thing I would say is change your environment. Surround yourself with people that are actually doing what you're doing. So normal just get pulled upwards instead of dragging you back into old patterns. Or actually change your physical environment too. If staying at home distracts you, if you don't have a dedicated place to work and it's just your bedroom, find a dedicated workspace. And this one thing changed everything for me. If you keep thinking the same thoughts and doing the safe things, you'll keep getting the same life. Something has to interrupt that loop, and it can be something small today. And the last lesson, real building is quiet. When you imagine starting a business, you probably picture the loud version, the announcement post, the polished brand, the perfect website, looking like a founder before you've actually served a single person. I did the complete opposite, partly out of fear, honestly, and it accidentally taught me the lesson. No announcement, no perfect branding. I built my first course quietly, messily, while still working my 9-to-5 day job. And my first paying client, she didn't come to me because I looked the part. She came because I showed up. I was honest about where I was and what I could actually help her with. Nobody who matters is buying your logo. They're buying your trust. And trust is built by just quietly showing up, not by performing success for people who aren't even your ideal customers anyway. So if you've been waiting until you look ready, remember that done is better than perfect. The messy version that exists beats the polished version that doesn't. I'll be honest, none of these transitions were easy. And yes, some people, they will just always judge you. People will judge you anyway, no matter what you do. So just change anyway. Them judging you, how is that really going to impact your life? Who cares what anyone else thinks? If you believe that the decision is true in your heart and that you should be trying to do something different, or if you want to do something different, why does it matter what some random person in your family thinks that you don't even ever talk to? It's never too late to become the version of you who lives life on her own terms. Whether you're in your late 20s, in your 30s, 40s, or even 60s or more, it just starts with one brave decision. And you don't have to make that alone. So if you're ready to start, I've put everything together in my community. Everything you need to go from stuck in your life, in your career, in your 9-to-5, to actually having the clarity that you need for your next steps, starting with mindset and figuring out who you actually are and who you want to become and what do you actually want, to then building your first online business, even with zero business knowledge, because that's exactly where I started. So if that sounds like you and that's where you are in your life right now, be sure to check it out. The link's in the description below. And remember, drop the urge for external validation. When you start taking action from a place of self-worth and investing in you, you will literally begin to see your life shift. And also just remember that no one will come to save you, that you choose the life you desire and that you want to live. Everything that you dream of already exists in a higher dimension. So now it's our job to bring that into your current 3-dimensional reality. So really hear me when I say this, that you're not behind. Maybe you're just beginning. And I say this to myself too, because I thought the exact same thing. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate your time. I really hope that you got a lot of value out of this, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.